Hey class, I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about teamwork as you're at this point in the semester, working on your project proposals, working with your client, trying to coalesce as a team, dealing with challenges that are common in any sort of team. I just wanted to talk through one example from my own background in life and share that with you. And maybe this will be something that will be informative to you, something food for thought, things for you to consider as you move forward working with your team. I'm going to grab a marker here because I'm going to demonstrate for you on my whiteboard behind me something that I experienced several years back. So the experience that I had as an undergrad student working on group and team projects was generally pretty negative. What I experienced, or at least how I perceived my experience, is that I would find myself in teams, and I was someone very interested in doing very well in every class. I wanted to get an A. I was a go-getter. I was very diligent. I find myself getting into teams, and then I'd feel like I was stuck with people who didn't want to contribute, and I feel like I had freeloaders working with me on the project, and I felt like if anything was going to get done, that I'd have to do it myself, and that the whole the success of the project ended up depending on me. That's how I felt, and I felt that pretty much every time I did a project. So fast forward, I end up graduating, and I go into my master's program. I'm doing a master's program in the business school at BYU, and at the start of the program, they required everyone to do like a day-long orientation slash team building ropes course type of situation. It's actually located in Provo, the place that I went. And so we went to this place, and they had a series of team building activities and different events and different types of things that you'd be involved with. And I have to admit, my attitude wasn't particularly great. I felt like it was a little bit hokey. I felt like it was a bit of a waste of time. I knew that I was diligent. I knew that I would be a contributor to the team. And so I just wanted everyone else on my team to be committed to making sure the team would progress. But the program recognized something really important. They recognized that having teams coalesce and form around common experiences was really important. And in this program, I was put in a team, and I was with that same team in every single class, every semester for 2 years in the entire program. So I probably did, I don't even know, I probably did at least a dozen or more team-based projects with this group, the same group of 5 people that I was with the entire time I was in the program. So I knew that this was something that, I wanted that team to be successful. And I met my teammates, and, we seemed to hit it off. And I'm like, yeah, we can work well together. We go to this ropes course, and we start doing these activities, and I start to find things that I'm a little nervous about with some of the team members. I'm like, this person seems like they're a little bit shady. They're not, they're a little bit, what's the right word? They don't seem quite as committed. Perhaps they seem, like a little flaky or something like that. These are the types of thoughts that are going through my mind. But we go through the activities one by one, and we have the experience, and we get through the day. Well, at one point, it started to rain a little bit, and so they had us get off like the big zip lines and the wires that are 20 feet up in the air that you have to walk across and all that kind of stuff. And we ended up doing something that was really low down on the ground for just a little activity. And they started just to describe it to me, and I'm like, hey, this looks fun, and I could see exactly what needed to happen in order to be successful. And so I was excited to have the opportunity to do this and to demonstrate to my team that I'm a sharp guy, that I understand what to do, that I can figure things out, and that I'm gonna be an example to the rest of my team. So that's what's going through my head. So let me describe the activity really quick for you, if I can. I'm a terrible drawer, but I'm gonna try to do this on the whiteboard. So basically what you had was a tree here, and then you had like poles or something over here. And what you ended up having was a wire going to the tree from this way and a wire going from the tree from this way. So you have this V effect happening. And what you do is you have 2 people stand up on the wire next to each other, across from each other. So now you can see that there's people standing on either side of the wire. And when you're right by the tree, it's super close together. It's right at the point of the V. And so what you do at this point is you lean in like this, and you put your palms together, and you lean in together. Now, when you're right here, that's super easy because you're basically standing up straight and you just put your palms in. Well, then what you have to do is you have to take a step out and a step out, and you keep moving like that. And as you go further out, you get farther and farther away from each other. And so you end up leaning in. And so there were 6 people in my team. So we had a pair of people go first, and they got up and they took like 2 steps and they fell. So they were leaning and it didn't work and they fell down. And immediately I'm thinking, oh, I know exactly what needs to happen. I know how to do this. I was excited for my turn. Well, the next team gets up, the next pair from my team, they get up and they go a little bit farther. Maybe they go 3 or 4 steps, but they're still not to the end. And I'm getting excited at this point because I've now observed it twice, and I can see, that I know how to do this. I'm going to be able to do this well. And my goal is to get all the way to the end and to show an example to the team. So then it's my turn, and I get up with another partner from my team, and we get up and we start leaning in, and immediately we lean in, and I can tell like he's doing it wrong. He's not leaning in right. He's not putting the weight the way it needs to be. And so I say something to him. I'm like, oh, do it this way. Lean in this way so that we can be balanced. So he kind of does it. And so then we start to take a step, and we literally take like 1 step and we fall. So at this point, I'm a little frustrated because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this isn't that hard. And this guy that I'm going to be stuck with for 2 years in all these team projects doesn't even get the most basic little activity that we need to do. And I'm getting a little frustrated with him. But of course, this is all just in my head. I'm not saying any of this out loud. I'm being diplomatic, and I say to my my partner, I'm like, okay, we can do this. Let's get up. We're gonna be better this time. We powwow for a minute about what we need to do differently, and then we get up and we do it again. And we lean in and we start walking. And this time maybe we get 2 steps, but we fall again. And what I noticed again was that our balance was just totally out of whack. We weren't leaning the right way. And so again, I was frustrated. But I'm trying to mask it. I don't want to betray my emotions to my team and make them feel like I'm a petty person or something. And so what happens is the facilitator at the ropes course, he pulls us aside, we all sit down, and we do a little debrief on the activity. And he asks, the first 2 pairings, he's like, what happened? What went well? Why were you guys able to get as far as you were? What would you need to do to go farther? So on and so forth. And we have that little bit of a discussion. Then he gets to my pairing, and he looks at us and he says, so what happened? He's like, you guys really couldn't do it at all. Like, what happened? And I say something, I don't even remember what I said, but I just said something general about, our balance was off and we needed to do this or that or whatever. And the facilitator just looked at me, and he's just kind of glaring into my soul a little bit. He's like, you know why you guys didn't go any farther, right? It's because of you. I'm like, because of me? What? It wasn't my fault. It was my partner's fault. He was totally leaning wrong, and he was out of whack, and his balance was off, and all that kind of stuff. I didn't say that, but that's what I'm thinking. I'm like getting defensive, and I'm thinking, no, that's not my fault. That's his fault. The facilitator continues. He's like, no, it was your fault. Do you understand what happened? And at this point, I'm just quiet. He starts explaining it. He's like, when you were up here and leaning, you set the stage for dysfunction, because initially when you got up there, you started giving orders, and you might frame them as tips, but you were basically giving orders to your partner. And so then he was up there and he was kind of put off. I could see it on his face. He was put off a little bit. He felt like you were being bossy. And so he's like, this is a dumb activity. I'm not really that invested in it. And so he didn't really lean probably the way he needed to. But the real reason you fell isn't because he was leaning the way you needed to. You probably wouldn't have gotten very far. But the reason you fell is because you overcompensated, because he wasn't leaning very much. And so you were trying to lean to try to get him to lean. And ultimately, that's what threw you out of whack, and that's what threw you out of balance. And then you ended up falling. You couldn't go not only could you not go to the end of the V, you couldn't even go more than a couple steps. And so I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I can't, this, are they really blaming me for this? This is something that, I totally understand how to do, and I feel like physically I could do it, and I had a partner that wasn't invested in it, and they're blaming me that we couldn't go further. And so that was hard for me, and I sat with that, and it kept on going around in my head that day and for a week or even a couple weeks, and I just kept on thinking about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the facilitator was absolutely right. Like, it was all on me. I totally created the context and set the stage where my partner felt like, why should I even try? Because this guy is kind of over the top. This guy is pushy. This guy is kind of giving me orders, and I barely even know him. And now he's like trying to take the lead, and he was put off by it. And so his initial response was in reaction to my initial behavior. And then because of his initial response, I interpreted that in such a way that he didn't know what he was doing, that he was being lazy, that he wasn't contributing, that he was at fault. And so then I overcompensated for any of the faults that he had. And the more I thought about that, the more I realized, like, wow, this is something that I've been doing my whole life. And I thought back to all my undergraduate projects that I did with students in my bachelor's degree, and I realized that at least there was a high probability that some of those dysfunctional team projects that I did, where I bore the brunt of the project, where I did a lot of the work myself, where I had to take the lead, and where the project could only get done if I did it myself, that there's a high likelihood that a lot of that was my fault because of the way I acted and talked and behaved around my classmates. Now, were some of them maybe lazy, or maybe some of them were freeloaders, or maybe some of them weren't fully invested or fully contributing? Certainly possible. But was I off-putting to other people? Did I give them a sense that I wasn't willing to really be collaborative? That I wasn't willing to get their opinion? Did they just feel like, hey, he's going to do it he's just going to push his agenda on us and his opinion on us anyway, so why even bother? All of that stuff started to come to mind, and I realized that, yeah, that probably is at least some of what happened. I'm at least partially to blame for those poor team-based activities that I did as an undergrad student. And so at that point, I was committed that this next 2 years of my graduate program, I was going to be a different type of team member. I wasn't going to be quite as arrogant about like my own contribution, and I was going to realize that other people had important contributions to make, and sometimes people are just have different personalities, and sometimes people are just quieter, and maybe you have to prod a little bit to get them to give you input. Maybe on the first time you ask the question, maybe they're not going to contribute, especially if they think you're just going to ramrod your thoughts and ideas down their throat anyways. That kind of team dynamic happens all the time, and what tends to happen is you have the strong personality who ends up taking over, and everyone else just shuts down. And it's not because they're not willing to engage or contribute, but it's because the dynamic in the group and the personalities are in conflict. And so I realized that I needed to self-check a little bit more, that I needed to be a little bit more responsive to the needs of my team and group, that I need to be a little bit more humble in how I approach them, that I can still contribute and at times even take the lead on things, but I also need to go out of my way to make sure that I'm helping them understand that their contributions are valuable, that their thoughts are valuable, and all those sorts of things. I'm sure I'm still not perfect at it, but that's something that I've worked hard on over the last 20 years. And I think I'm much better than I was then, thankfully. And it's something that I am always cognizant of. Every time I'm in a team-based setting, I'm constantly balancing, okay, how much do I'm an action-oriented, productive type of guy. Like, I like to get things done. So how much do I plow forward versus how much do I sit back and listen and soak in what the rest of the people are saying? How much do I allow other people to take the lead, even when I'm not quite in agreement with how we need to move forward? When do I vocalize concerns versus when do I allow the broader group to kind of lead out? These are all things that I think we all have to think about a lot. Ultimately, I hope that these are things you can think about within your own team. Every team has its challenges. Every team has its issues and its personality conflicts and its communication conflicts and difficulties. Every team has to work through those and establish common understanding. And we owe it to each other, I believe, to make sure that we have those types of conversations as we move forward on any project. So I encourage you and all of your teams to be proactive about having those types of conversations so that this can be a great team experience for you and that you can end up having a great project with great deliverables for your client at the end of the semester. I hope you all have a great afternoon.